Welcome to the World of Horror podcast with Mom and Mac. This is the podcast where we share our love of international horror. Everyone has their fears, but we are not afraid of subtitles. Before we get into it, fair warning, these discussions will include spoilers and language which may not be suitable for all listeners. Let's move on to our first segment, Mom and Mac Chat.
Hi, Mac. How's it going?
Hi, Mom. It's going well. Yeah, things are going okay. I like that it's brighter outside, and you showed me a woman on YouTube, Lifting with C, who does like dumbbell workouts at home, and I've been trying to do that because my goal is to get more manly looking. And by God, like the video, I mean, for all WoHos, I might as well be starting. I think I would deem myself like totally baseline athletics, like maybe not in the negatives, like, and I know I don't mean that in like a mean way, like, but maybe I have the athletics of someone who's literally never exercised before, like, and this woman, I believe she's in her like 50s or 40s, and she markets everything as like, oh, for women over 40, but I would market it as for like extremely buff people who know exactly what like, and I mean that as in like, this woman is so muscular, and whenever I cannot get through a single workout, but I mean that positively, like she seems really sweet and nice, but by God, I'm in so much pain. Like and I'm not even going, like, I'm not going nearly as heavy as she's going. But I know that means I'm working the muscles, but I just was like, man, like this is, and all the comments are very similar. They're like, I know you market this towards like, you know, women in their 40s or 50s, but like I'm a man in my 30s and like this is whooping my ass and stuff. And I agree, but it's nice. It's great.
Yeah. I might do one of those workouts today. I actually ran a mile yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah. I have been telling myself for a while now, I want to start running again. So I was like, why don't I do that? So I'm doing this program called None to Run. And so you start off really, mostly walking. But same thing. I woke up in the middle of the night and I was like walking like Frankenstein. And I was just like, oh no. My heels were really sore. So maybe my form is a little off. And I'm fine now. But yeah, I was just like, oh boy, it's kind of a hard road when you first start, but I would say if you can put up with being sore for like 3 weeks, you'll be okay, as long as you just keep at it. But if you keep quitting, like I have a tendency to do, then you're just going to have to go through it like over and over again.
Yeah, the first day I tried, the next day my thighs have never known such pain. Like there were so many squats involved. And at one point while squatting, I actually fell down because like I just don't think I'm very like strong yet or anything. But then the next time I squatted, it felt better. But then afterwards, after I did like a 20-minute dumbbell lifting thing, I was like, okay, I'll start, because I also bought one of those steps. And so I was like, okay, let me do like a beginner step thing. And I was like, actually, no, like I'm so wobbly because my thighs hurt so much. I can't do this right now. But I feel like it's all good things. It's like, wow, okay, your body, it might be a shock. And I am stretching and whatnot, but I don't even think stretching can prevent if you're going from sitting all the time to now putting weights. Even if it's just a 5-pound dumbbell, your body's still going to be like, whoa, buddy, give me a break.
Yeah, I would say, with squats, make sure that your legs are far enough apart. And also, I don't think there's any shame in not completing a workout. I mean, I think they're really hard. And I would love to get up to like the weights. Like she shows like what weights she's using.
Jesus Christ.
And where I could maybe use like a 10 pound, she's using 18 pounds or something, or even 25. And I'm like, I would love to get there, but I'm certainly not there yet. And also just drink a ton of water. So what else is going on?
Well, I was going to say, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing really well. I like in Fargo, she goes, I'm doing really super, thanks.
Aw.
Yeah, so I'm basically done teaching. As I
Woohoo!
told you, graduation's on the 9th, but I'm trying to not go to graduation because I tend to have, to say not a good time is a severe understatement. I basically have to hold on for dear life not to have a panic attack in a setting like that. So HR is not responding to my queries, even though I provided them with a letter, an accommodations letter in January. So that's a little frustrating. But my actual counselor was like, you have to like do a QR code when you go in, like for attendance or whatever. And she goes, what would prevent you from scanning your code and then leaving? And I'm like, I mean, really nothing, as long as I don't get caught, you know?
Yeah.
So, or I could just like attend the graduation from the women's bathroom.
I was just about to say, can you chill in the bathroom the whole time?
Yeah, that might be what happens. Last year, I just popped in a podcast, but I still was like jumping every time a new person got on the mic because the sound was all fucked up. And it was just, a terrible, terrible thing. And
you shouldn't have to experience, because it's also like such a huge thing. It's not as if you're going up and speaking. It's not as if anybody who's graduating is like, let me look in the crowd. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't see, Ms. Hare. Oh, graduation ruined, because you can't see anyone. It's huge.
Yeah. I mean, no one wants to go, but
you have like a medical reason to not go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that is happening. And what else happened? Well, I turned 55 and I treated myself really well this year.
Good.
I got a massage and a pedi on my birthday. And then I went to an art workshop and then made that window.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's beautiful.
I think, because my sister doesn't listen to the podcast, I think it's fine to say that when she comes next Sunday, I think I'd like to make a window with her because she just moved to a new house. And so, like, sometimes I try to find activities that are not food-based activities. And so I think that could be kind of fun.
Yeah, I think doing a craft together is nice. Like, your brains are so focused on that. I think it's something that you don't do as much when you're not in school, but doing an activity together with another person towards a common goal is like a really what is the word?
Rated?
Yeah, underrated activity. Way better than getting food with someone sometimes, because especially when it's not like stressful, it's just like going to like paint your pot with somebody.
Right.
You both just get to focus, but you're still together and you're doing it together, and then you get to show each other what you've made. I think that's very beautiful.
So it sounds like we have a lot of stuff going on.
Yes.
We had to cut a lot of that out, WoHos, but that's okay. We're working through our own stuff. Just know, WoHos, that behind the scenes, there's a lot of stuff going on. None of it's bad. It's just some of it's a little tricky, but
private. I mean, this is it's like we are recording for the pod, but also it's a great opportunity to talk to Mom face to face. You can't type all this stuff out. So I'm like, let's kill two birds with one stone.
I know. I was in this group of podcasters and people were trying to figure out like how to make money off their podcasts and stuff. And in the beginning, I think I kind of had that idea, like way back at the beginning. I was just like, we'll have t-shirts and we'll have merch and all this other stuff. And then I realized all I really want from this podcast is to talk to you twice a month. And then if other people are interested in what we have to say, cool. Somebody
awesome.
in Iceland is really into us right now. Shout out to the Icelandic WoHo.
Hell yeah.
Or WoHos if you're listening with a friend. I don't know who most of you are. I know who some of you are. But yeah, that's the main reason of this podcast is and that's why like every movie ever means a lot to me, because they say at the jump, it's mental health check-in between two buds, thinly disguised as a podcast.
Shout out to every movie ever. Super nice, awesome guys.
Yeah, they are. All right. So, you texted me a little bit.
Yes. I was like, let me save this for the pod.
This might be a spicy podcast.
I'm open-minded to get my mind changed. I'm very open-minded. I realize I believe I can be very reactionary to things, and maybe if I watched it more than once, I'd have a different opinion. But so you're just getting my first impression, and I would love to like things more.
and really, you're kind of like like you just finished this, like
just now,
less than an hour ago. So really fresh. So tell us about Men, Mac.
All right. Men, here is the brief plot summary from IMDb. A young woman goes on a solo vacation to the English countryside following the death of her ex-husband. It was written and directed by Alex Garland. It stars Jessie Buckley and Rory Kinnear. Cinematography by Rob Hardy. Edited by Jake Roberts. And music by Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow. It was released May 20th, 2022 in the US and June 1st, 2022 in the UK, with a runtime of 100 minutes.
How'd you feel about that runtime?
Towards the end, It felt like it would never end.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, the beginning of this movie, I went in with very high hopes. I knew nothing about this movie.
Really?
The only thing I knew was that it was called Men, and that I had heard, because around 2022, WoHos, I don't know if you know this, but I kind of only watch movies now for this podcast. I don't know what has happened in my life, but I'm just not as, I would say I'm interested in horror movies in that I enjoy watching them and talking about them with you. This is a great opportunity to watch them, and it's more directed. It's more more focused. But I'm no longer just going out into the world and watching things, or even really watching trailers, or even going to the movies. It's just, maybe I'm just going through a phase, but it's just not something I'm as interested in now, just for a personal hobby kind of thing. And this kind of came out around the time that began, because I remember being excited to watch it, to post about it on Letterboxd, and then I just never did. But I remember it being very polarizing. Some people I follow, I think, were like, fuck this movie, So I thought that meant something crazy happened in it. But anyways, let's get into it. So we see Harper, aka Jessie Buckley, who I've seen in a few other things. I believe she was in that movie. What is it called? We Need to Talk About Things or something like that. It had Jesse Plemons. Yes, I read that book, and the book was a lot better than the movie. But Jessie Buckley plays Harper. Harper is in her apartment. We see her walk to the veranda and close the glass door. And this is it's like a cold open. Moments later, her husband falls in slow motion past the window. Harper is shocked. Her nose bloodied, she watches him fall, and then we see a field of dandelions scattering their seeds. So next we cut to Harper traveling to a remote country house. Something I do love about this movie is the use of color. That scene in the beginning is very rose tinted and kind of orangey, and then this cut to the remote country house part, it's all very green and lush. That's such a, the use of color is so good. I think this movie, visually, the first part of it is so gorgeous. Makes you want to move to the English countryside. It's just beautiful. She is wearing, I love that you wrote down what she's wearing, because I wrote that down too. She's wearing very muted natural colors, a very olive kind of green coat, and a nice little sweater. I loved her style in this movie. She's very cute. And she's got this really cute short bob. It looks great. She parks into the parking lot of this countryside house and immediately eats an apple from the tree in the front yard. I mean, like Garden of Eden stuff, I guess, Eve's eating the apple. I don't know. Here's my first thing is I think if you call your movie Men, how can I not think that everything is symbolism?
Mhm.
I feel like it's a very bold move to call your movie Men. And I immediately had to look up, did a man write this? Yes, he did. And I feel as though that is very apparent. And I just have one short statement. It's that I think men writing about misogyny is a great idea. Who better to have an insight to misogyny and toxic masculinity than men? But do I need men to write about misogyny from the viewpoint of a cis woman? I personally don't. I don't think it's necessary. And I feel as though the ultimate act of uplifting women would be to give that opportunity to a woman to talk about it, because who better to talk about the effects of misogyny as a woman than a woman? And I just felt like that was very apparent through this movie. So she meets Jeffrey, the caretaker of the house, played by Rory Kinnear. From the get, this character, I'm not English, but I just feel as though I know this guy. Like, this character was honestly the most interesting, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
His face is like ruddy. He's got like a lot of like broken capillaries on his face. His teeth are so like off-white. His hair is kind of raggedy, and his like body, like he's hunched over. This was amazing acting. He like transformed himself. So in the beginning, I was like swept away. I was like, I'm in this.
Me too. And I don't think he has to be English, really. I mean, English
This is just a guy we know.
Yeah, I've met American men like this.
Yeah, and what I liked about this guy was that he doesn't seem like an awful guy or anything.
Right.
He's awkward, and I don't think he's the landlord of this house, showing her, this cottage that she's renting, and he's the perfect landlord. Like, this is such landlord energy of like, I don't really want to have more than a 10-minute convo with this guy. He's not a horrible guy. I just don't need to talk to him longer. He probably has a little bit of a smell to him, and he just, maybe his breath smells. I don't know, but like, and the way that Jessie Buckley plays this is so well, of just like very polite, but like, all right, well, thank you. Like, she keeps trying to end it. I think the scene is art. The inside of the house is dark red. It's so beautiful. It's huge. He insists on bringing in her bags. She very much is like, no, that's okay. And he's like, I insist. So a lot of that. He directs her to the kitchen. Harper explores the kitchen and walks through to the glassed-in porch. Jeffrey is struggling with her bags, but still refuses her help. Like, he even drops something and is like, shit. And she's like, Jeffrey, like, do you need any help? He's like, no, it's fine. And I think scenes like this are great. This is a very subtle depiction of like something very minorly frustrating when you're a woman and people think that like there's this weird rigmarole, but it actually is just an inconvenience to everyone.
Right. And I think, like you said, like he's maybe the least harmful man that she encounters, but he's still harmful because it's the chivalry thing.
Yes.
And that's an insult to women. And so
it's uncomfortable.
Doesn't make anybody feel good.
It's like, if you offered to help, that's fine. Be like, oh, that looks like a lot of stuff. Can I carry one thing for you? Perfect. But insisting on carrying all of it when you can't carry all of it is just stupid. He makes a joke about her eating the apple from the garden. First, getting very serious, like, oh, you mustn't do that. Scrumping, which I had to Google scrumping. It literally means taking an apple from a tree. It's like whenever I watch Great British Bake Off, I'm like, what does that mean? And you just learn that there's just words we don't have that British people do. And then he's like, no, I'm just joking. You can eat as many as you like. Otherwise, they'll spoil and then we'll get wasps everywhere. Harper holds her cup with green leaves in her hand as Jeffrey gives her a tour of the house. Yeah, she's wearing like kind of like a rosish sweater or like a burgundy kind of sweater.
Her sweater's kind of brown, and then she's got almost this color that I'm wearing, kind of like a dusty rose pants, and then he's got exactly the same color on his
like a dark
sweater.
red.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he matches the house very well.
Mm-hmm.
She says she does not play piano when he asks her, and he's like, well, me neither. And he shows her the upstairs. He makes sure to mention, ladies, do watch what you flush. And he just kind of gives her a look, and she's like, okay. He's like, well, that's all I'll say about that. I needn't say any more. Just like, okay, yeah. Like, if there's anyone you don't have to tell to flush a fucking tampon, it's the people who use tampons. Like, we know. He asks her if she'll be staying alone, or will her husband be joining her, because she signed up as Mrs. And she gets kind of flustered, and she's like, oh no, like it's just me. He gets really embarrassed, and because she says that she hasn't changed her name back, and he's like, good job, Jeffrey. I really like him. He lingers awkwardly in the doorway, but then, is like, okay, well, I'm just down the road. Harper calls her friend on the phone, FaceTimes her, and describes Jeffrey as a very specific type of character. Very, very country. And I love that because, yes, like, this is a guy, but we all know him. The phone blitzes out, and there's this weird kind of screaming face that appears briefly, but they just kind of write it off as like, oh, the internet and the countryside. So as she unpacks, she flashes back to the discussion she had with James, her ex-husband. And so we go back to the original apartment with this rosy tint.
Okay, I just want to say,
yeah,
I'm still in at this point. I mean, I'm in for the whole movie, to be honest. I did like it. I could tell. I liked it a lot more than you did. But I think the writing in this scene is really masterful. Mm-hmm. I've had arguments like this. I don't have them anymore. Yeah. But she's, in her 30s. I mean, I definitely had them in my 30s. And I think it's really good. I didn't write it all out or anything, but the way he just takes what she says and twists it is really good. Really good writing, yeah. I think.
It's scary. Like, yes. It's frustrating. Because she is divorcing him, and he says that she can't because of their wedding vows. As if, that. And I really like that line because I remember going to a friend of Alan's wedding a few years ago, and the woman he was marrying was super duper religious, and her dad officiated, which was so weird because it was so Christian that, like, part of the vows were like, women follow your men basically in whatever they do. And I find that shit so disgusting because it's like, in anything? Sorry, no, that's not even how a relationship is supposed to work. And I even went to another Christian wedding where the pastor was like, it's not communication that is going to keep them together. It's Jesus. No, actually, it's the opposite. If they're going to stay together, it's literally communication. Like, that's just disturbing to me. It actually disturbs me a lot. So yeah, he tries to use the wedding vows against her as if that actually, that's so stupid. And then says, well, if she divorces him, he's going to kill himself. And then says that she's going to have to live with it for the rest of her life if he does that. And this is beautifully acted because she's just so taken aback and scared of this because you can divorce someone and not want to be with them and not want them to die. That's most people on the planet. And she tries to push back saying, no, he'll be responsible because he'll be the one who does it, not her. And killing himself would be the last thing she could ever want. And he says, well, that's not really true because you want to divorce me. And it's just so upsetting. And she's so distraught, because she's like, no, but this is happening. Like, I am going to divorce you. But you can't kill yourself and say that it's because of me. Like, that's just not true. And I wrote down, it's probably one of the most disturbing things you could ever say to somebody. I think that's incorrigible levels of manipulation.
Oh, yeah. And she even says the fact that you're threatening to kill yourself if I divorce you is why I should divorce you.
And she's right.
Why 100%. Would you want to be in a relationship with somebody like that? I mean,
how do you go back from that?
No.
So this memory brings her to tears in the present moment. She then goes for a walk. And this is my favorite part of the movie because it's so beautiful. This vibrant green everywhere. Her overcoat is a beautiful, like I said, an olive green that really matches the forest. And she lifts her face to the sky as rain starts to lightly fall. She takes shelter under a tree and she smiles as the thunder booms and looks up at the sky through the leaves. I just feel like this whole scene's beautiful because she's learning to appreciate life again. Like, we see this contrast where she was cooped up in this tiny apartment with a man, and clearly something horrible happened, and now she's in this bright, open expanse and just enjoying being alone in nature. I think that's gorgeous, and I think everybody now would benefit from that. Like, everybody, if you go out for a walk today, you'll probably feel better about your life. And I had like a little exercise because again, when I realized that a man wrote and directed this, not that I'm saying men can't write good women, but I wanted to see, what do we know about her from what we've seen so far? Because I think sometimes female characters can fall pretty flat, and I was impressed at how much I was able to write. I write down. I said, she's not used to setting boundaries. She had to set a very firm boundary with her ex-husband, but found it very difficult to push Jeffrey out the door. Couldn't really put her foot down with him. She finds joy in the little things. She lets things come to a head before she takes action. She's very polite. She's currently grieving. She has an American friend. She's trying to turn over a new leaf. She's trying to experience life anew. And she's very stylish, but kind of dresses conservatively. I feel like I get an idea of who Harper is. So she happens upon a tunnel and makes up a little tune that echoes off the wall. Like literally like, ha ha, and then ha 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 ha. But then she keeps adding so that the echoes are overlapping with each other. And she's getting so much delight from this. It's such a beautiful scene. Again, this is probably my favorite part in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And the tunnel is just, because you have the green sunshine bouncing into this dark black tunnel, and just there's water on the ground, and all of it just makes you want to move to the English countryside. I was just like, this is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen.
But in the beginning, it looks kind of scary, and she, I mean, what I do think this film does very well is, if you're a woman watching this film, you totally get it. Like, going into a dark place is just going to be scary if you're on your own. And I'm not saying that men can't be scared by going into dark places, but every single woman you ask will have had this experience, and it's a visceral thing that you can feel, like, in your gut. And so she hesitates. And then when she goes inside, she's all by herself, except she's creating this art and this music just with her voice. And, she's in concert with the tunnel itself, and the tunnel could be a metaphor, okay? But she's laughing. She's not just like smiling. She's just so delighted, at what she's created.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. It's all going so well until a male figure appears at the mouth of the tunnel, and there's a hoarse scream that echoes through the tunnel. She immediately and we see him from very far away. It's like you see something come upright and turn, and that moment is so creepy. And then just slowly get up and start screaming. And then his, the exact same echoes are happening, but with this horrible scream. So she runs away from the tunnel and runs past the part of the woods where she previously was. We see a dandelion seed hover in the air before Harper encounters another tunnel, but this one is bricked off. Instead of turning back towards the man, she crawls up the side of a hill until she is back on the level she was at the beginning of her walk. And, I mean, all of this, it's just, it's like a feast for your eyes, honestly, the whole time. Like, you get the mossy parts, all the ferns. Oh, I love it.
And I think this tells us something about her, too, because she makes her own path, so to speak, even though it's very, very difficult. But she's capable of doing that. And I like that moment where she's just really struggling. If you've ever had that experience, you can definitely relate. It's kind of scary. Like, you're not sure if you're going to fall down, but she doesn't. She makes it all the way to the top.
Yeah, she doesn't let things stop her. She encounters 2 abandoned shacks and eventually makes it back to an open field where the sound of the hoarse scream is replaced by the sound of the wind. She then goes to, because it's a very beautiful little shack area, so she goes to take a picture for her friend, and then she sees a naked man standing still by one of the shacks. And I mean, we see full frontal nudity, this kind of pasty figure. but we can't really make out any distinguishing features of him besides the fact that he's naked. So we flash back to a sunsetty London, and this is such a great contrast because we have this like cityscape with, we see all these like cast iron bars and like an orange sunset. So again, like this color contrast between like the greens and the brown next to this orange and the black is very, very good. And we see James's mangled body because he's fallen onto this cast iron fence. He landed on a spiky gate, which has split one of his arms down the middle, and his body is all contorted. And she just walks upon it and just is shocked to see him. And we see him, and like they make sure to be like, look at all this great prosthetics we've done. take a good look.
Right. And I think, along with the symbolism, because he has a severe injury to his hand, I think we can safely say is probably an allusion to Christ. And he's like looking down, and his body is like just in this one line, but his ankle is horribly mangled also.
Yeah. So that night we see Harper in the bathtub. It's in this really beautiful bathroom, again, very dark red. And she gets a message from her friend from the picture that she sent her. When Harper zooms in on the picture, the naked man is there. And she's just kind of like, ooh.
Did you see what the friend said? Because I couldn't read the text. I think she says OMG.
I think she just said, something kind of, which it's like, it could mean like, OMG, there's a naked man, or OMG, that's beautiful.
Right.
The next morning, Harper's in her cute little green jammies. She brushes her teeth and then changes into her light pink dress. Love this dress. It's so pretty. And then plays the piano beautifully. There's a shot of her framed in one of the panes of glass, and it's just, she plays like a Chopin or something. And then she kind of does like a little wrong note, and is like, dang. There's a shot of the apple tree, the green fields, the lily pads on the rippling pond, the blue flowers in the fields, the moss-covered trees. They're just showing you, oh my god, look how pretty it is. I would love to live in a place like this, or go on vacation there. So Harper then makes a work call from the glass porch. I've got no idea what her job is, but she's talking about the accounts. It's like the most basic business shit ever. She's like, no, the account is blah, 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 blah. And so there's a great moment because the naked man is in the backyard. He passes behind her, but they're kind of like ships passing in the night. She just never gets a chance to see him. And later he's like peering in at her through the glass. Her friend calls asking for the grand tour. And again, it's like she's showing her everything, but just keeps managing to not see that guy. Mm-hmm. The naked man is still peering at her. She admits to her friend that she does play the piano, and then sees him by the apple tree outside. So she dials 999.
I like the piano thing. What did you make of that?
That she didn't tell Joffrey that she played the piano.
She didn't tell Joffrey, but she does tell Riley.
I mean, I feel like the fact that she even has one female friend already gives Alex Garland a +1 over every other man who writes a woman ever.
Right.
Because, like, that is just such a thing that always bugs me. Of course, not every woman has a female friend, but the vast majority of them do. Because it's just a normal thing. And women, like, if you want to talk about misogyny, it's like, that is how women find safety. Or, I mean, again, I'm not trying to speak for all women, but I feel as though, why would it not be the case? Like, of other people who understand your experiences so intimately, you stick together, and I don't know, it's just, so that bugs me whenever there's a female character, and she just doesn't, inexplicably has no female friends.
Yeah. No,
it's just not realistic.
I'm not down on Alex Garland. I actually really like him a lot. And I think that alone, like you said, the fact that, he sees her as a person with an emotional life outside of the trauma is amazing. Unfortunately, that's amazing.
The bar is so low.
But yeah, and I think it's just a really subtle way to say that she feels safe with Riley and she does not feel safe with Jeffrey. And at first you could just write it off. She just wants to get rid of him. But also, I think it's a good practice not to tell everybody, that you don't know very well, everything about you.
Yeah, I think so. I think it gives you a lot of power. We see the man has marks on his face, and this is when I write down, is that the same guy as Jeffrey? Because again, I had no idea anything about this movie, so I think that was in the trailer, but I didn't know. So that was a pretty interesting thing where I was like, okay. I knew it wasn't Jeffrey, but I knew it was played by Rory Kinnear, so I thought that was, I was like, okay, this must be the theme of the movie. She notices that the front door is open and there's a shadow on the other side because she's talking to the operator on 999, and she locks the door. I did think it was refreshing that this operator was a woman, thought that was interesting, and that she took her seriously. Like, I feel as though that's something we see a lot in movies of people being like, well, there's just a guy. Is he really doing anything? But that they were like, okay, we have somebody on the way. There's a car in your area. She locks the door, and then the man pushes his arm through the mail slot, and he has really long, like, fingernails. I noted that. And this reminds her of a confrontation with James where he grabs her phone because she's texting Riley during this whole heated argument. He is really scaring me. And he demands that she unlocks her phone. She won't unlock it. She says, it's my phone. And so he punches her in the nose and she falls back. Now, okay, I feel like you probably disagree with me, but it's like violence against women. Yes, domestic abuse is a very real thing, but I just felt like this scene felt a lot like shock value. Like it just felt like, I'm not saying it was outside of the realm for this guy to do this, but it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know. I just felt like it felt really... I just wasn't like the biggest fan of this happening. I feel like he could have shoved her, but the punch in the face was so violent. And I felt like... And again, I'm not saying that there are men who don't go from like never having hit their wives to then punching. I'm sure that has happened, definitely. But I even feel like shoving her to the ground or something would have given you the same violent effect. But it just felt so violent, you know?
I thought it was fine. I think this is all the same conversation, right?
Yeah.
So this is, she said she's divorcing him, and they've had this confrontation, and he's left the room, and she's texted. And I think what he's upset because he's saying, like, this is between you and me. What are you doing? Like, going outside of this. We're dealing with this right now. And he's trying to force her to give him the phone. And so that he can like cut out that possibility of her not being in this interaction with him. And when she won't, that's when he does the only thing he can think of. Well, she throws her phone, right? She throws it away, and then he punches her. Because he's just like, at that point, he's just like he's lost control. Like the message has gone out. She's not as into this as he is, and the only thing he can do is hurt her. So I don't know. It didn't bother me that much.
I accept that. It's like, I'm not saying I'm down on Alex Garland. I just feel as though this movie, it began to feel very shallow to me, where I was like, I feel like it thinks it's saying a lot more than it actually is. And this is the beginning of me feeling as though I think I even would have liked the movie if the title wasn't Men. Like, I just feel like, this is my take, this begins to feel like not deconstructing absolutely anything at all. It feels very face value. Men hit women. Women didn't do anything wrong. Like, men violent, women not violent. Like, and it doesn't actually go... Later we get a little bit of it, but it just feels like very much in a vacuum and not actually really super going in depth of why this happens. It's just kind of depicts it as it does happen.
Well, and that's what the vicar says later. And while all that is true, I think it's not so much about his violence toward her. It more goes back to your breakdown and description of her character and her actually having guilt about any of his actions. And that's, I think, a very common thing. And I think women do it more than men. Men can certainly do it. But, you know, that idea that we're responsible for the bad behavior of men.
Well, and that's the thing is, I think in a lot of ways she is written very, very well. And she has a lot of depth as a person. But for this movie to be about like misogyny and men, I find most of the men are not written very well at all. But I feel like that is to its message's detriment because
Well, I did want to talk about that because they're all the same, right? They're all the same. But are they all the same because they're all the same, or are they all the same because she sees them as all the same and as manifestations of her toxic acts?
But that's the thing to me is I'm like, I feel as like if we're trying to dismantle and trying to if we're trying to talk about it, which this movie is trying to do, it's trying to talk about men. The title is Men. It's like, you're not talking about it though. It's like, and I don't see I see Harper as a human. I see literally I don't even see James as a human. Like, I don't see
I get
any
it.
of them.
I get it.
And I don't feel like that's good. Like, I don't feel like that is effective in its messaging because it actually, I'm about to get a little bit galaxy brained here. Okay. It feels a bit like, I'm going to tie it a little bit to like trans misogyny because like, to me, a lot of very baseline, like mostly white feminism is like women good, men bad. And I feel like that does a detriment to everybody when we make it that basic because like it doesn't acknowledge the fact that if we even look at like the identity of me, like a trans man and stuff, it's like I very much identify as male, but these are never things I would do, you know, but and there are many things that and this is not me saying not all men. Okay, please, audience know this. Obviously not. But my point being that it's like, this does not happen in a vacuum. Men are not born with these tendencies.
Right.
They are taught to them. And I will grant that this is touched on very briefly at one point later on in the movie, but it just frustrates me, I guess, as a message because I feel like it doesn't actually do anyone a service when we just try to make it of like, well, this is just a thing that happens because there's a reason. And to make it stop happening, well, you got to find the source and the reason. And I just don't think this movie does a very good job at doing that with men in particular for it to be called Men.
Yeah. And the title didn't bother me until we started talking, but I think you're absolutely right in that, you know, I feel like this is not news to anyone. I feel like
it's not like, whoa, what?
Who is this movie really for? Like, who is this movie really for? Because all of the women who are watching this movie are like, you know, okay, just to jump to the very end, you know, when she says, she goes, "What do you want from me?" And he says,
"That's how I feel from the movie."
Yeah, exactly. What do you want from me, Alex Garland?
Yeah, I know. And that's why I wish from a man's perspective, he is a cis man. If he could give from his perspective why men are like this, I would find that so infinitely more interesting than him trying to tell me how women feel about it. Because as somebody who was born with a vagina, I know, you know, like, yeah, you're talking like any, and I'm not saying men can't be, like men are victimized by other men, but he's specifically giving us the viewpoint of a cis woman. And it's like, you do not have to, anything that you know has been told to you or you've read it. So you don't have to tell us how it is. And I feel as though it would be much more fascinating to give any sort of semblance of reasoning from his point of view, why he thinks his fellow men do these things. But I don't get any of that. Again, I'll touch on it when it happens. The blink and you miss it moment where I think it happens. But other than that, I just really don't see it. And that's what I wanted from it, is I want, like, okay, you're calling it men and you are, oh, I'm looking this up. Oh, you're a man? What do you have to say about it? And it turns out to me, I feel like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's my issue.
If that's all this is, and I don't think that's all this is. Like, I don't think his project was simply to tell us that men are toxic and that men breed toxic masculinity. I don't think that's it. If that's it, that's a stupid project. But I don't think that's it. But what I find frustrating / I like about Alex Garland is I feel like he's working the shit out in his movie making. Like, he did Ex Machina, he did Annihilation, and these are stories that are about men and women. And the thing that I think I've been thinking about for the last several days is, if you view people as a binary, you're not exploring things very deeply at all. And the reason that came up is because of that interview that I sent to you, which I know you didn't have a chance to listen to. Well, I'll talk about when we get to it. But it's because of some things that he says about himself and his work in that interview that made me think, oh, I mean, you're smart and you have some good ideas and you're exploring things, but you need to go a lot deeper. Yeah. You know, to say things that are interesting to me. Yeah. I mean, at least.
I also feel as though I don't know how you felt about this. I felt like it was a very specific choice. We did not mention this yet, to make James, her ex-husband, a black man.
Right.
And have him be the only black character in the entire... Now, granted, there's only like 3 other actors, but they're all white. Mm-hmm. And my biggest issue with Ex Machina was, in my view, which I didn't... maybe other people, and I just didn't look it up, but I felt like I saw nobody else talk about it, was his like use of like a black woman's body and an Asian woman's body as like a prop for this white female robot to use to her own gain, which I found very disturbing. And though a white man is very much brutalized in many moments of this movie, it's like the black man, her black ex-husband is so violently brutalized. Right. And I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It just felt icky. And I just feel like he does not have a very good track record he makes me feel icky many times with regards to his black characters in movies.
And that's not going to change with Civil War, from what I've heard. There are a number of black bodies that are brutalized in Civil War. I haven't seen it yet, but that's what I've heard from a black reviewer. And
what's his deal? It feels like he's got, like, dude, you've got some other things to work on, because and it's like, okay, on the one hand, I would like to live in a world where it doesn't have to be a pointed thing to simply cast a black actor in a role, but I can't give him the benefit of the doubt. I really can't, because of the other things that he's done, and it feels very pointed. Like, it's not that I'm trying to say that he's trying to say that, you know, black men are violent or anything like that. And I think it's actually important to show, like, a black character having a mental health crisis. I feel like that's not something very much explored, but it's actually not explored.
No,
he uses, and he doesn't actually commit suicide is the thing. Or we don't know. It's a question mark.
I don't think, it doesn't seem like it because of the expression on his face, but then is that a reflection of her memory? And I know that did bother me as well. In both movies. And I'm. Yeah, so it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's definitely a problem. And I mean, I don't think he's saying that black men are particularly violent. I think he's saying all men are, you know, outrageously violent. Even boys are violent. Yeah, so. Okay.
Good talk, though. I like that. Was a good convo.
No, yeah, it is.
So the naked man is arrested. The police think that he is an unhoused man. Very specifically, there's a male and female officer. We don't really see the male officer, but we see the female officer. And I thought that this interaction between the female officer and Harper was very nice too. You know, I think she was just trying to make Harper feel better and say, like, I don't think even that guy really knows where he is. And if it makes you feel better, like, I don't think he's particularly like a danger, but don't worry, we've got him. And, you know, he just smells really bad and we're taking him in. And, you know, so it's taken care of. Harper calls Riley. Riley really wants to come up, but Harper says she just wants to be on her own, and Riley reluctantly agrees. This part I felt was a bit weird because maybe this is just the person Harper is. But again, it's like it felt like maybe just a plot point that Riley doesn't just come up then, because I feel like if it was me, I'd be like, you know what, girl, if you're offering, come on up, chill with me, because I'm pretty scared. A naked man, has followed her from the forest and tried to violently get into this house that she does not live in normally. And she's like, you know, actually, I'm cool.
Well, she thinks the problem's over because she thinks that he's.
But he would still be scared.
Yeah, he'd be scared. But and I've done this. You know, you have, and she went there to heal. That's the mission, right? And so it's not to bond with her girlfriend, or to explore the village. It's to heal. And that's a private thing. So didn't bother me.
Okay. If it was me, I would have been like, please, we don't even have to talk, but just having another person here will make me feel a lot safer. But she says no. And I guess I would be Riley in this situation, and I would be like, please. But Riley's a little bit upset, but she's like, okay, I respect you. Riley seems like a very good friend. So Harper goes to explore the village. She goes to this really beautiful church, but it's empty. It's really old. You know, it's a lot of beautiful stained glass. I actually took a screenshot of one of the stained glass because it was just so gorgeous. There's arches, and there's, what does this say?
Okay, so in the church, there's I think it's called a plinth, like a base. Mm-hmm. And it's got the Green Man image on the front of it. And on the other side is the Sheila Nagig, the woman who...
It's like giving birth.
Yeah, she's like exploring
her vagina.
Yeah, herself. Yeah, and then I wrote an asterisk here that goes with the trivia. And it explains the Green Man and the Sheila Nagig, because that's like central to this project, apparently.
You know who he reminded me of was, I've actually played 2 video games recently, Cult of the Lamb and this game called Inscription, where they feature a character based off of Leshy, the forest spirit in Slavic mythology, who is this green man whose face is like green and made of like a bunch of twigs and sticks and whatnot. And he is supposed to rule over the forest and hunting. And he's also like a pagan deity. And so I thought that's what that was, but maybe it's just overlapping, you know, religious stuff.
Do you want me to read it to you?
Yeah.
All right. The 2 images sculpted on opposite sides of the church altar are well-known symbols in England, known as the Green Man and the Sheila Nagig, respectively. At the movie's premiere, director Alex Garland stated that he had been obsessively trying to work them into a screenplay for the last 15 years. Green Man is a very old male nature deity or forest spirit found on both secular and religious buildings all around the world. He is often depicted with a face made from foliage, and although his origins remain unclear, he usually symbolizes rebirth, specifically the seasonal cycle of growth and decay. Sheila Nagig, thought to mean Julia of the Breasts in Irish, is found as sculptures mainly in Europe, specifically Ireland, usually depicting a naked female figure with exposed breasts and vulva. Theories about her age and function vary. Most sculptures date to the 11th century, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's Celtic. Anyway, existing before Christianity, in some cases as a symbol of fertility or childbirth, or a representation of the pagan mother goddess. In later times, the symbol may have been used as a religious warning against sinful lust or to ward off evil spirits. Modern views regard the Shillinagig as a symbol of feminist empowerment, widely used during the 2018 Irish abortion referendum and body positivity.
Okay, interesting.
And the fact that it's in a church is pretty weird.
Yeah, it seems like it's not a Christian thing in any way.
No.
But he said he wanted to work it in, so...
Well, he worked it in. He works it in. How many images of this fucking thing do we see?
Numerous.
See, I thought you were going to like this movie more as a result of this conversation, but I think I'm liking it less.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh,
well, just wait till we get to the end, because that's where I really turn. Again, I think the beginning is so strong. Mm-hmm. I would watch the beginning over again. I probably wouldn't watch the second half again, but I'd watch that beginning again. Harper sits in a pew and flashes back to right after she was knocked down. I love this scene. She told James to get out. And, he's kind of trying to apologize or say like, oh, I didn't mean to, but that no matter what he did or said, he would never see her again. And I wrote, yes, girl! Like, that was the ultimate right thing to do. And I literally, because I knew that was going to come into question later, I could tell that would be something, that I was like, I'm sure at some point some man is going to tell her that was her fault. But I said, let the record show that she did the right thing. I said she was not wrong in the least. If somebody punched me, especially if they were my partner, I'd be like, it's over. And this is no offense to any, like, I know a lot of people stay with their partners even when that does happen. That's very understandable. But it was very empowering to see a character be like, no, like, if it wasn't over before, it is over now. That was not okay. And then there's a really cool shot, though. Oh, she's like screaming after this because it's such a painful memory. And these like shadows go over the Sheila Nagig and the Green Man, which was really cool. I thought that shot was awesome. And we see a vicar who sees her crying. And who does he look like? Joffrey. Also played by Rory Kinnear. We flash back to her crying in the apartment. And then she's walking outside. And she encounters a boy wearing a mask with a woman's face on it. And it might as well be like a blow-up doll face. It's like Marilyn Monroe hair. Is it Marilyn
pink
Monroe?
Lips. I don't know.
Yeah, it really looks like her.
Glamorous woman.
Yeah, creepy. And I mean, this is like a boy. Like, he's wearing like a boy's uniform.
This is weird because it's still Rory's face.
Yes. I don't know if y'all have seen the music video for Psy of Gangnam Style fame's song Daddy, but the music video has him playing an old man, adult man and a child, and it's just his face on a child's body, and it's creepy, and it's the same effect because I mean Rory Kinnear still looks like an adult man, right. But it's on a child's body, and he's kind of doing a little falsetto voice. But yeah, I thought it didn't take me out because I knew what they were going for. So he asks her to play hide and seek, but she says she doesn't want to. The vicar tells the boy to leave her alone. And the boy takes off and calls her a stupid bitch. And the vicar's like, oh, well, I'm sorry about him. And she's like, I live in London. I'm used to children cursing at me. I'm not used to them cursing at a vicar. And so they sit together and he's like, well, I can tell you're in pain. Like, let me help. So she opens up a little to him and she just tells him, about how what happened after James punched her was that he forced his way into the upstairs apartment, tried to climb down the balcony to get to, which, I mean, that's pretty scary. That's like, what, is he going to try to kill her? Like, climb down to get her, but he slipped and fell. And she says, or maybe he let himself go, and that she thinks that she definitely saw him as he fell, but she asks the vicar, could he see me? Is that what happened? You know, she's clearly it's very painful and she's trying to work it out. And he at first seems to understand her. Like, he's like, oh, well, you know, you're haunted by this. And she's like, yeah, that's true. And he's like, you know, what could you have done? You're wondering, like, could you have prevented it all? And she's like, wait, what? And he's like, well, you know, men hit women. It's just like a fact. It's not a capital offense. And, you know, it's the first time he ever did it, right? Well, you know, maybe if you had given him a chance to apologize, he wouldn't have died. And this is obviously all her brain has been telling her. Like, this is the guilt she is feeling, which is very normal. I think if anybody, if he had killed himself, like, that was the whole point, was to her to think about it forever. You know, he literally said, which that felt a little bit cartoony to me in a way, him saying, like, you're going to think about this for the rest of your life. I don't doubt somebody would say something like that, but it felt very like, I don't know if Alex has ever had some, I mean, I'm not trying to presume, but it's like, when I was younger, I had a friend who I did not want to be friends with anymore tell me that he was going to kill himself if I wasn't going to be friends with him. But he never said anything like that. Like, he wasn't like, I'm going to kill myself and you're going to think about it for the rest of your life.
Well,
he was
also,
like, hey, well, if you leave me, if you're not friends with me anymore, I'm going to kill myself. And
whenever there are flashbacks in the movie, I always wonder, like, is this really what happened? Or is this colored, you know, in her memory?
This is true. But it's like, the think about it for the rest of your life, to me, is already implied. Like, you don't need to say it out loud. And she could have even said, I'm going to be thinking about this for the rest of my life. And that would have made more sense to me. Mm-hmm. And that would have, again, shown more into the fact that she's a human being and that she has no reason to feel responsible, but who wouldn't feel responsible in some way for this?
Yeah, that's actually kind of a missed opportunity in that scene, which I thought was pretty immaculately written. Mm-hmm. But if it could have been rewritten and given her the line, because all she says is, it would be unbearable if you were to do that.
But if she said, like, no, if you did that, I would think, like, you would affect me. Because that makes him so incorrigible, which, again, obviously, it's incorrigible to hit your partner and to threaten suicide. That's horrible. But I feel like that would have been a great moment for her to be like, do you realize what you would be doing? Of, like, you would be giving me this pain, something I would be thinking about for the rest of my life if you did this to me. And then if he would still do it, that would be like, oh, wow, that's pretty fucked up. But to be like, that's my goal in life, is to kill myself and have you think about it for the rest of your life. It's like, whoa, okay. You got this planned out, don't you? And so, yeah, the vicar's just being a total asshole. Also, at one point, he, like, touches her knee and he, like, squeezes it, and it's so gross. I literally wrote, get your hand off of her. I was so upset on her behalf, because that's also just something that I think I think even men have experience with this, of just somebody, it's like, they don't have to be doing something overtly, like, sexual, but it's like, it's invading your personal space. It's not okay, you know? You should not just touch people without asking their permission. Don't touch a woman who's telling you about her ex-husband who died violently in front of her. Like, what are you doing, dude? But that's the whole point. So I like that was included. So it ends with her telling him to fuck off. And I thought this was such a weird detail. First off, he's got 2 coke nails. All of his fingernails are short, but his pointer and his thumbnail are really long. And he, like, kind of strokes the, like, bench after she leaves and then puts on chapstick. And I was like, I've got chapstick. Like, what was he trying to say about chapstick? That was such a specific detail.
To me, what it was he's got really nasty thoughts and impulses, and these are ways that he can safely indulge them. Yeah.
And yeah, I gotta say, like, the costuming and the makeup for all of Rory Kinnear's looks are just like, mwah. That's probably one of the most fun parts of the movie, is like, he's an amazing actor. I don't know what else I've seen him in, but I was blown away by his performance also.
He was in Black Mirror.
Oh,
and
who was he in Black Mirror?
I think he was the Prime Minister.
But everyone hates that one, but I love it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm the only one.
It's not my fave. And although I think I've only seen it once. And then he was in a show called Years and Years, which I really liked. That was on HBO. He had a pretty big size role in that one.
He's great.
Yeah.
So next we see a dead deer in the forest. It's got no eye, and a dandelion seed falls into it. We hear Harper's song, The Plinth Again, and then the rotten body of the deer I was like, is this the passage of time? It was a little bit random. I know deer just die in forests, but there seemed to be a lot of like when she goes in the tunnel, I had the thought, is she going into a different world, and did she come out and the world is reversed now or something like that? Like, is everything flipped? Because it kind of feels like the camera flipped. Because when she walks back, it's kind of from a different angle a little bit. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at it. But yeah.
But it seemed like the passage of time. I just don't know what they were talking about, because she's still wearing that same damn dress.
You're right. So it's been a day. It's been maybe 2 hours. So the green man sits cross-legged. The naked Rory sits cross-legged, and he's kind of in this underground looking area, and carves into his forehead with his fingernail and inserts a single green leaf. So I was writing men are grown from the dirt,
Well, we don't know it yet, but
yeah.
It's all him.
Yeah. So then we see Jeffrey working on a crossword puzzle in the pub. Harper comes in, and again, all of the guys in the pub are Rory Kinnear. Joffrey wants to pay for Harper's drink, and she again is like, no, that's okay. And he's like, no, her money's no good here. And again, I think his character is so great because he's kind of like the original Michael Scott, the Ricky Gervais one, where it's he's just doing it a little too much. He's probably, like we said, the best guy in this movie, but it's just a little bit too much, but it's the perfect amount of awkward. So the policeman comes in, who is also Rory Kinnear, we can see now, and fills Joffrey in on the intruder, because he's like, oh, did you know there was a vagrant around your house? Joffrey makes a very awkward implication that the naked man was a friend of Harper's. He's like, while the cat's away. And she's like, no, absolutely not. And he's like, oh, okay. The policeman says, well, we also let him go. And this really disturbs Harper. And he says, well, he didn't steal anything. And she says, well, he stalked me. I saw him twice. And this is where we get what I thought was going to happen earlier, where the policeman is like, so you saw him twice, that's not a crime. And basically says well, if you see him again, let us know. Kind of the ultimate thing that a lot of people who go through this, legit go through stalking, go through of well, we have to wait till he actually murders you until we can do anything. Sorry. So Harper is obviously upset, and she leaves the pub and walks home and calls them all fucking wankers as she closes the door.
Oh, I missed that.
Wankers. A distant scream is heard as she's walking home. And this scene is pretty great, because this is kind of what you're talking about of when you're walking home. If you're alone on a deserted thing at any time, she's looking behind her. She kind of turns around, but then turns back around again. She's just where is safe for me? Because we kind of see this area where it's it's a curved walk that's blocked by a little half wall thing, and you're kind of thinking is there a guy about to come around that corner? It's the question always in the air of is somebody about to come out here and murder me? So she then just runs home, and she goes back to her house and locks the door.
We do see the naked man.
Yeah, we see him in the cemetery.
In
just
the cemetery.
Kind of creeping around.
Yeah.
We, in that silhouette, we still see the dick. We got to see it. Is that Rory Kinnear's real dick, I wonder?
I don't know. I always wonder about that.
Yeah. I always think, if it's realistic enough, what's the point of having a fake dick? You know what I
Right.
mean? Of like, if your thing is, I don't want my dick to be on there, but it looks like that's your dick, then like it might as well be there. That's what I think it looks like now. Anyways, she videos her friend and tells her she's done, which I'm like, yes, please. And which I thought this meant I'm gonna go home, but no. Riley's like, well, how about I come up there? How long of a drive was it? 4 hours? Well, I'll make it 3 hours and we'll hang out. And if that naked guy comes back, I'm going to kill him with that axe that's behind you. And I'm like, okay, so that was the most heavy-handed foreshadowing of all time. The axe that's right behind you, camera pans to axe. She will be using this in the future. Stupid. Also, I know I felt like I can't, the old kind of horrible way some people refer to vaginas as axe wounds. I was like, have you ever heard that? I was like, is that a nod to that? Maybe. Which I hope not.
Well, the vicar, it could be. I mean,
he calls it like
the vicar
slit.
he calls it her cave.
Yeah, so gross. So that I don't know. Anyways, so as Harper agrees and is going to give Riley the address, every time she begins to say the address, it cuts out and we see that face again in the phone. And Harper finally just shares her location, but a text message comes back. I already know where you are, you stupid bitch. So the hide and seek, the little kid coming to get her. So then we get to the final 40 minutes, which I agree are some bonkers shit. She goes outside. There's like, a light, like a motion light outside. And we see the policeman in the yard under the apple tree. But he does not respond when Harper asks questions and then just disappears when the light turns off and comes back on again. All the apples begin to fall from the tree. And one of the men from the bar runs at her. There's kind of a great moment where it's like in Get Out, where you just see the camera come really fast and then it pans to the guy running. It's kind of the exact same shot, which, I mean, I would copy that too if I was making a horror movie, because that's probably one of the scariest things I've ever seen, of like, just when anybody running at you is scary. Like, that's terrifying. So she gets inside and locks the door. Then we hear somebody is running around the property. Harper grabs a knife, but something comes through the window and there's like glass everywhere and a chair's knocked over. Someone's pounding on the front door, and the chair across the floor is reminiscent of James throwing a chair. But it's Joffrey. He breaks into the house. Harper tells him that someone tried to break in. And again, I love Joffrey. He goes into the kitchen and he sees that there's a crow half dead on the floor, which, like, there's no way a dead crow could, like, break a window and push a chair over. But he's like, I could see how this could give you a fright. Please look away. And he breaks the crow's neck. And Harper insists that somebody was trying to get in. And Joffrey says, well, I guess I'll just have to take a look around as a good landlord. And Harper begs him not to go outside because she thinks he's going to get murked. But then Joffrey says, and this is the part that I thought was the one insight into why men could be the way they are. Joffrey says, I have the precise qualities of a failed military man. My dad said that to me when I was 7 years old. So I think this is Alex's way of saying this is taught to, boys when they are young, that, and it is men. Men do this to other men.
To
like
men.
And I kind of wrote this whole rant down after this because sometimes I like to just see why men's rights activists plus incels and the like feel the way they do about women. And it frustrates me because, to me, male loneliness and the like are the fault of men. It's not women's fault. Because if you want to get mad at women for raising their standards, which is insane, it's like, well, men are the ones who created these systems. And like, if there's anyone you want to blame, it is your fellow man. It's like that's just what bothers me, is like, women don't have the power, and men who feel like they don't have power, it's like, women are not the ones who did this to you. Like, it's other men.
And I feel like that is the thesis of this film, that it's all men's fault. Like, women don't have anything to do with this. Even though we're blamed for, and then the James's monologue, like, really hammers that home, that women don't have anything to do with it. Like, men hurt themselves and then blame their wounds on women.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
yeah.
Is this news?
Yeah. And that's why I wish we could get, instead of, it's kind of like, we're only getting the thesis, but I wish we could get the body, the point 1, 2, and 3 of the essay, you know, because I agree with your thesis, but I don't feel like you know why it happens, you know, and I want that insight from a man. I think that would be very interesting. And I do like it when there are movies that explore toxic masculinity. It's like, nobody's saying that can't be explored or shouldn't be explored. Like, even Wolf of Wall Street, to me, is a great movie into the look behind a man's motivations for why he's doing the buck wild crazy shit he's doing. Like, I think that's and so many movies have done that well. Like There Will Be Blood, or like No Country for Old Men, or like any movie like that. It's like, it's a very interesting thing to explore, and like, that's the perspective I want men to give me. I don't need them to give me the women's perspective. It's a great, if that helped him do something, good. But
yeah, and that's all. I mean, after we're done talking about this, I'll probably never talk about it again. That'll be fine. And I will see Civil War probably, and I'll see his movies, because I do think that he's an interesting director, and this is the kind of thing that would normally really bother me, that he's not got it all like figured out, but I kind of like seeing him figure things out.
Yeah.
I mean, as we've talked about, he's deeply flawed in terms of where he's at.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, maybe
maybe in a few movies he'll get it. Get it more nailed down.
Sounds so like condescending, but I just feel like he's doing he's taking a lot of big swings, like you said, but I don't think he's delivering on those big swings.
Yes, it's just a little bit shallow for me. So Jeffrey tentatively looks around the yard while Harper hangs back, and he, yells a little warning, like, if anybody's out there, come on out, don't do this anymore. So the lights flicker, and then the naked man appears in front of Harper. She backs up, and he follows her. There's all these, bloody marks over his body, and he seems to have wood and leaves sprouting out of his body. He blows dandelion seeds at her, and we get the slow motion shot as she leans back, and a montage of her screaming at the window, under the water in the bathtub, and then her running away. And then we see the two sides of the plinth again. She walks into the house and closes the door and locks it. And then we get the sequence of him putting his hand through the mail slot again. He reaches through, extends his hand. She reaches to take his hand, but he grabs her wrist. So she stabs him all the way through his arm, and he's pulling his arm out of the mail slot, which splits his arm a la James in The Fence. And again, this is kind of the point where I check out, because I was just like, what are we doing here? Like, it just kind of felt like a lot that said nothing. In the kitchen, the little boy has put the woman's mask on the dead crow and is using it like a puppet. His arm is also split. Now, this arm splitting effect, so cool. They did a great job. Good. Yeah, it's like sometimes they wiggle, like the fingers, like it looks great. He tells her that she really hurt him and shows her his split arm. He tells her she's mean, and she wouldn't even play a game of hide and seek. She continues to hold out the knife, and he approaches her until the knife is touching his chest. And she says, I'll hurt you. And he's like, no, you won't. He says that she should better run, and that it will be the last chance that she gets. So she closes the door, and she begins to count as if playing hide and seek. And we can hear him talking through the door as he's like, I know where you are. Like, you got to start hiding. Then another man breaks into the house. And then the vicar opens the door of the bedroom and he comes inside. Now, here we have my least favorite part of the whole movie.
This is rough.
I did not like this.
This is some rough stuff.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
She asks, "What the fuck are you?" And he says that he is a swan and asks her when she lost her virginity. And that he's been thinking about it and has had lustful thoughts about her. And then calls her an expert in carnality. And that she has explored all the things that they can do and have done to them. These things now exist in my mind. This is your power. This is the power you exert. Throw up. I'm puking right now. I don't know. I just was like, I didn't want this. When I asked for your insight into the thoughts of a man, this is like literally the last thing I wanted. Because I just don't know. I feel like I know what the point is, but I don't like it. You know, like I don't like this scene. It's my least favorite scene. And this is where I officially checked out and was like, I'm like checking keep checking the time. Like, when is this movie going to be over? Because I can't take it anymore.
Well, and I also think it's kind of like I don't know what denomination a vicar is. Is it Church of England? I don't know. But I mean, we know that there's a lot of, I mean, I think sexual abuse of a child is about the worst thing you can do, except when you are a religious figure and you sexually assault a child, because now you've taken basically everything from them, and the sanctuary that they thought they had in their faith is completely obliterated. So it's like, it's about the most evil thing you can do. But again, is this news?
Yeah.
To anyone?
Yeah.
That a religious figure who appears to be the paragon of trust and safety is actually the most monstrous person you can imagine.
Yeah. Like, yeah, we know,
We got it.
And I don't need to see that. Like, I don't, like you said, this is nothing new.
And then he grabs her crotch and then he gets her against the vanity and he's grinding into her and slobbering all over her. It's like, Alex, dude.
It's so disturbing and not in a cool way.
Mm-mm.
And this is also where I begin to be like, I think you actually might have a little bit of misogynistic views about sexual organs, Alex. Because he says, he compares her to a siren. She puts the knife under his throat. And then he starts, that's when he starts talking about the slit and the cave. And, here's the tip of the knife. So I was like, okay, so the knife is the penis and she's going to stab him. And the wound is a vagina. Like, hello? That's gross. That's actually very disturbing. And I don't think you're dismantling anything. I actually think you're making everything worse. Because I hate this. If it was if we're trying to talk about phallic symbols and trying to make some I would even take fucking Slumber Party Massacre phallic symbols over this.
Every day of the week.
Yeah, literally every day of the week, because this feels just wrong and gross. And I don't know. I was disturbed in a bad way. And I said, knife is a dick, and it's a subversion because a cis woman stabs a cis man and his wound is his axe wound is a vagina. I just wrote that down because I just was like, amazing. Wow, you really did it, Alex. This is where it begins to feel very trans misogynistic of just wouldn't it be crazy if women had the dicks and they fucked the men and they had vaginas? Wouldn't that be fucking crazy? No, it wouldn't, actually. It actually would not be crazy. I don't think you know anything about trans people, and really just got me going.
That's what I mean. That's the point that I was sort of coming to in terms of if this is all that he thinks humanity is, it's divided into these two categories. That's it. and how this could be, a historic relic in that this is the way. See, kids. This is the way people used to think about.
Yeah, look how much better we are now.
Hopefully,
God, I hope. So yeah, he puts his split hand around her neck, and I thought that was kind of like,
nice.
a childbirth thing of like, that's her head coming through. I think it's like a rebirth thing, because maybe, I don't know. She has got like, then after that, like blood around her neck the whole rest of the movie. I just
thought that was like a horror, because it's like a horror element, because I mean, his fucking hand is split.
That's very gross.
Really gross.
So, yeah, he's on top of her, slobbering all over her. She looks at him, she runs the knife into him, and knocks him over. So then Harper's like, song plays, and she runs out of the house. She gets into her car and literally runs over Joffrey. He gets up, his limbs are all broken, and he just pulls her out of the car and throws her down. He gets into the car. Above, the sky seems to display an impossible number of stars. Very pretty. She looks up, comets stream across the sky, and then the Ford Fiesta is coming to run her down. And we just get a cut to Joffrey, like screaming right into the camera. Harper runs out of the way, and then Joffrey crashes the car. I literally wrote, like, look at that Ford Fiesta go. I've never seen a Ford Fiesta just going all over the place like that. This is where I I know I keep saying that, but that's the level I just want to tell you of just like, this is where I really check out.
Yeah, I told Mac this is where I turned it off, because I've already seen the sequence a couple of times.
Don't need to see it again.
Just sort of yada the rest of the script. And for some people, this is the deepest, like,
if you think this is deep, film.
I think Alex thinks it's deep.
So in a grand act of, wouldn't it be crazy and gross? The naked man, this is where I really thought he looked like every depiction of Leshy I've seen, because he's literally got green and like twigs coming out of his face. But I guess he's supposed to be that symbol. And he's got a big pregnant stomach, and then he sits down, and then, oh my God, wouldn't it be crazy if somebody had a penis, but under it they had a vagina, and they were a disgusting man? And then what if it gave birth to another man? I just find this so offensive. I'm just like, no, it actually wouldn't be that crazy. And I don't think it's that disgusting. And as a trans man, I find it pretty disturbing that this would be the whole, this is the moment, in the movie that he's been waiting for us all to watch. And this is his big thing of just like, I get the point is that this is an endless cycle, and that men, influence young boys who then grow up into men who influence young boys, blah, blah, blah. And that it's an endless cycle of abuse that seems to happen. Great. Awesome. I really don't think we have to show this by having a man literally give birth, and they just keep giving birth to each other, but the orifices keep changing places. But it is a vagina every time. They make a very big point to show us that this is a vagina. And I just, as a man with a vagina, I really don't think it's that gross to have a man have a vagina, personally. And yeah, I literally wrote, wow, birth is so weird and gross. Am I right?
Yeah.
And I even find the idea of that to be pretty offensive. It's like women are not birthing machines, and I don't think, but I think I do find, okay, personally, as somebody who literally had a surgery to make it so I could never have children, I don't ever want to be pregnant and have birth. I find it to be a little bit body horror-ish, but I would never put that on birth itself. It's like, I don't think birth itself is something that should be shown as this like disgusting, horrible thing. I don't know. That also feels wrong to me. But it is also beautiful. Like, it's how we were all made. Like, we weren't all birthed technically, but like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's pretty gross.
Well, what he said in the interview was that he wanted to show the most pristine example of selfishness that he could. And he said, the green man said, I'm even gonna take birth from you, women.
Okay. Wow. That's honestly, to me, J.K. Rowling levels of turfness.
Yeah, it's pretty horrible, and I just, even just as a cis woman, I'm just like, I really hate this whole idea that the biggest, most wonderful thing you can ever do with your life is to have a child.
Yeah.
Like, I love my kids, but I don't think that they are my biggest accomplishment.
Yeah, I don't think so either. You're a human. You've done so much.
I'm actually like a full human.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just a woman who gave birth. What?
You have friends, you have family, you've had partners. It's like, you have work accomplishments, art accomplishments. It's like the list of things you've done. It's like having children is like one thing on the list. It is not the list. And I don't know. There's a life before birth. There's a life after birth.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's not, that's not the best thing that women can do. Or even that only women can do.
Yeah.
As you were saying. So it's like. Now I hate this movie.
What about every cis woman that can't give birth or doesn't want to give birth or gave birth and hated it and wished that it had never happened to them?
But also, what about men who do
give
have
birth
babies
and are great parents? And what about trans women who are great mothers and never give birth themselves? Like, just hello?
Yeah.
And yeah, to me, that is truly J.K. Rowling levels of she believes that trans women are men trying to steal anything good that a woman has ever done, which is fucking crazy, is like literally an insane thought to have. So yeah, that keeps happening. Like, this sequence is so fucking long, y'all. Like, it's so long of just birth. And there's this one moment where Rory Kinnear, I literally had the thought of like, what's he thinking right now? He's sitting there with his giant pregnant belly just screaming. Like, like, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
And
but he's Joffrey in that moment, right?
No, I think that's when he's the little boy.
Oh, okay.
First, the man gives birth to the little boy, who then gives birth to Joffrey's like the last one, I guess.
But what I kind of love is at first she's horrified, and then she turns away.
Yeah, she's like, whatever. That's me. And then he gives birth to James at the end, who then walks out, and that's when Harper says, "What do you want from me?" And James says, "I want you to love me." And then we cut to Harper waiting. Riley has finally arrived. She's pregnant. And Harper smiles at her, and then the movie is over.
I hate it.
I hate it so much. I said, at least it ends with women helping women. That's like the least I can give him. But I would like to see. I mean, I'm tired of talking about this movie.
No, I totally get it.
So yeah, it was a choice. I said, I'm legit bored. During the whole birth, that's what I wrote down. Well, what does Letterboxd have to say about it? Dan McCoy gave it 4 stars. Me through most of the movie. I'm not sure why people are mixed on this. It seems pretty great. Me when the ending rolled around. Oh, me as the ending kept going and going. Nah, those people are wrong. Go big, King. Let's fucking do this. I feel so alive. Well, Dan, I see your name's Dan. I'm gonna guess you're a cis man. Opinion thrown in the garbage.
In the bin.
In the bin. Yeah, I've binned it. Nahal Nin gave it 5 stars. What a layered, horrifying, deeply uncomfortable film. Go into it without spoilers. The acting is incredible, the music haunting, and the cinematography gorgeous. Worth rewatching? Yes. I agree with like 25% of that review. Tyler Floro gave it 5 stars. A one-of-a-kind horror film. Atmospheric, beautifully photographed, with an absurd/bonkers finale. I would say like yes to all of that, but then I would give it not 5 stars. Jord gave it a half star. Alex Garland, retire, bitch. Veronica gave it a half star. After watching this, I firmly believe that men need to be banned from writing stories about women. Will gave it a half star. Pissimo.
Pissimo. In all caps.
Yeah, in all caps. Well, what phobia is that? Dendrophobia is the fear of trees. I do not have that. Love me a tree. Well, do we want to rate it? Oh, do you want to go to the trivia?
I just want to say about the dandelions.
Yes, please.
The symbolism of the dandelions is significant. Dandelions reproduce asexually through a process called parthenogenesis, which means all dandelions are clones of an initial specimen.
Oh.
This is a clue to the nature of all the men in the village, who are all played by Rory Kinnear.
Okay, that's interesting.
Sure, let's rate it. 2 stars.
I'll give it 2. I think 2.
2
split hands?
Yeah.
One side of the hand? I think 2 is great. I think it's great because it's like, the beginning is so solid and my hopes were so high. And then they just...
I mean, how long is the movie? 100 minutes? The first hour is great.
Pretty great. Yeah. Solid.
Yeah. The last 40 minutes is completely not great.
Yeah, garbage.
So, garbage.
What have we learned? Well, I think that who was it that just said it? Veronica said it best. I think maybe men should take a little bit of a break from
break.
I think the most empowering thing we could do for women, and I'm going to go for also stories about racism, all of that. Let's let the people who it happens to talk to us about it. I would rather hear them talk about it.
Garland could have, directed this.
Yeah, and had a woman write it. That would have been beautiful. Mm-hmm. Totally cool with that. I think if it would have been probably better if a woman had been anywhere near the script when it was written. I think that would have been awesome. If they could have touched it, that would have been great. Would we watch it again? Not on your life.
No.
Favorite scene and or death? The beginning. The scene where she's walking through the tunnel, experiencing
the tunnel
joy.
Scene.
Yeah.
Yes,
beautiful.
It's the best.
You got a perfect mix of joy and creepiness, and the sounds and the screams echoing to mirror her joyful singing. Beautiful, Alex. You were on a roll, and you've disappointed me. Though I think I feel differently than you. Every other movie I've watched from him has been a no for me.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
But I gave it a chance.
So, well, thank you for talking.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you suggested it because I just, again, knew nothing about the movie, but I knew people had thoughts about it. So this is the best place I would ever want to experience the movie, is talking with you about it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was never going to watch it, so.
There we go.
I'm glad we watched it and talked about it.
Me too.
And thank you for joining us for this episode and for all your support. It means the world of horror to us, truly. Next time, we're going to be looking at movies about stalkers with Single White Female from the U.S. and Cry of the Owl from Canada. If you're enjoying this podcast, please tell all your friends all about us. Remember, WoHos, we love you, and don't go into the basement.